this one's a little bit scary because if you think about it, I don't know if it's possible. I'll pose the question to you here, though, right now. Will Destiny 2 fail is basically the question. Will Destiny 2 ever be able to be as successful as Destiny 1 in terms of sales, audience, etc.? You have this hardcore audience. Yes, it's large, but in terms of sales, it's not going to be as big as the Destiny 1 audience. And that has to be a little bit scary for Bungie and Activision and us as players that love this series and want to play more. How could the core audience that got to play Destiny 1, they feel burned. And we see it in the comments. We see them talking about it all the time, like people still play this game, et cetera, et cetera. There's just this overwhelming feeling that I got burned buying Destiny 1. So how could Destiny 2 ever be a success?
So first thing, there's a lot to unpack there, but one, I don't think sales equate a success. Let's first off go there, right? There are plenty of...
So Destiny 1, definitely a success sales-wise, but a failure narrative-wise and like the core product.
Yeah, I wouldn't even really call it a failure, right? Like that's a pretty strong statement. Like it didn't live up to the expectations.
I'd say in the fans' eyes, they were let down by the product that was presented to them. Most of them were. Some, like us, were happy with it. We recognize the strength and the gameplay.
I'm not disagreeing with you there, but I mean, like, to say that something... I don't think that it's all binary, right? Like, I don't think that just because something wasn't a smashing success that it's a giant failure, right? Like, it's the spectrum of, like, balancing expectations with the delivery, right? You are right in saying that a lot of fans expected this massive, open-world, exploratory shooter based on Halo's legacy and Bungie as the Halo developer. And in that regard, it didn't quite live up to that. But because it didn't live up to that, is that a failure? No, I don't think so.
So the question is, that's arguing Destiny 1. Will Destiny 2 fail? Will it fall flat on its face when it's released?
No, of course not.
Why do you say that?
Because while Destiny 1 might have been a little bit lacking with fans' expectations, there's a very big and vibrant audience that plays Destiny now who, when Destiny 2 comes around, if it does, bring new features and do something new and interesting and different and is, a little bit more settled in the next gen sort of iteration of where we're at in the industry, I think those fans will be looking forward to Destiny just as much, if not more, than they were Destiny 1. So if you want to, like I said, there's all these different factors into what determines a failure versus a success, and I don't think it's binary. I don't think that you can just flat out say it is or it isn't, right, without considering what you're talking about. But if the question is, will Destiny 2 fail? No, it won't fail. There are plenty of games that are not nearly as good as Destiny that sell pretty well.
Here's my question we usually get a lot of comments with a lot of negativity towards Destiny. I really want to hear a real response from you guys this time. And I want to know why or why not, when asked this question, why will you not be playing Destiny 2? And we get a lot of people on the internet that say they won't, then they still buy it anyway, like with the Call of Duty boycott. There was a group for Call of Duty 2 or something, like Modern Warfare 2 or something. They were all boycotting it, and everybody in the boycott group was playing it the day it launched.
Of course.
Yeah, so I would really, really be interested to hear you say why you will not be playing that game. And then going even further, is there any world or any situation where you would give it another chance with the sequel? I think that'd be really, really interesting to hear from the audience. And you can just leave a comment on this episode.
Yeah, and I mean, we can speculate as to what that is, right? Like you pointed out that...
So here's what I think they need to do. They need to wipe the slate clean pretty much. Sure, players who played the first one, they'll get bonuses in Destiny 2. And like all that work you did will carry over. But there has to be a large reason for the community to come to Destiny 2. And that starts with the story. They really have to nail the story with the sequel, because if they don't nail that, all those people that felt burned, they'll just feel justified in not showing any support for the sequel.
I think you're right. Like, story is key for the sequel, because if anything, like, regardless of what features you bring or new gameplay or however cool the maps are and all these brand new things that you might be bringing, if the story isn't there, then that one lingering sort of criticism from year one, which is that Destiny has no story, is still valid, which will still give people a reason to like just throw that comment away in every sort of comment section on the internet. So I think you're right as far as story goes. We can speculate as to what would bring players back, right? Like you pointed out that there was this high expectation of what Destiny could be. And because it wasn't that, players felt burned and they felt like they were cheated a little bit out of their money. And then it was exacerbated by the fact that Destiny only seemed to improve over the year with DLC, which costed extra. So that gave fans who were burned, or I guess you wouldn't call them fans at this point, but people who were burned by Destiny 1 even more fodder for why Destiny isn't good, because now they have the argument that it only, like, to make the game good, you need to pay more money. So I think like if you want to encourage those people to come back, one, you got to nail the story. Two, you have to present them with a bunch of really cool features and stuff that they find exciting about Destiny that is actually in the game afterwards, right? Like one of the big things was like, one of the really big things was that someone asked, or it was during a presentation of Destiny, I forget at which event, they said like, they looked out on this beautiful open world right there on Earth, and they said you could go anywhere and explore anything, and that is not the case.
No,
like
not
it's
at all.
very linear actually in terms of how the world is designed. And that was just one of those things where people like had this expectation of exploring a world like GTA or Skyrim where you can go anywhere and do anything in any order, but in this sci-fi sort of combat oriented world. And that was something that didn't deliver. So I think that there is a way to get people on board. It's like if you present them with something that is really cool and exciting like that, and then you deliver on that, haters won't have anything to hate on.
I almost wonder how much of this is the marketing team's fault, how much of it is Bungie's fault for like having this grand vision that didn't quite come to fruition, and how much, this is the harder one, how much is it your own fault for kind of having a wild imagination about what could be based on just a little bit of information. I mean, that's what a good marketer does, right? They get you excited about a product.
Yeah.
And they say it's overhyped. Overhyped by whom? By your own imagination?
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, that's a really difficult situation to ask, and we're probably going to get flamed in the comments for it, because whenever you ask somebody to look internally and actually ask that question, you're met with defensiveness. So yeah,
I think
it's something to consider.
It is, and I mean honestly, the bottom line answer there is who's to say, right? Like I certainly no one could fault Bungie for wanting to do something grand and expansive, right?
Yeah.
Bungie's job is to make the coolest thing that they can make on the resources and the timeline that they have.
Yeah.
Marketing's job is to, no matter if the game is bad or good, get as many people interested and hyped and buying the game as possible. So you can't fault them either. But you can't also fault the fans for getting excited about something if it seems cool, right? Like, you can try as a fan, and I often do, to temper expectations because...
Like earlier in the show, I was talking about like the next DLC. I want to be excited about it, but I'm setting my expectations low.
Right. Like, and that's the thing is like you can say that fans do need to temper expectations or keep their expectations in check, but really at the core of it, like, can you blame someone for getting excited about something that seems awesome? Of course you can't, right? So there's really no one in a situation like that to blame, and there's so many factors that go into an argument about like who is to blame for whatever the problem is. Yeah. So I don't even know if it's worth exploring, right? But like, I think the core of the question is like, you got to take a critical look at what Destiny 2, when it comes around, is presenting and whether or not that's interesting to you, like internally. And you got to factor in all of this, like, okay, well, they did say these things before, so and they didn't deliver on that, so maybe I got to keep that in check, right?
I think that's going to have an impact on their pre-sales. You know, less people will pre-order.
Well, going back to the root of the question, which is, will Destiny 2 ever be as successful?
Yeah.
Successful commercially? I don't think so. I don't think it's possible, because
this was the first big game of a new console cycle. It launched on 4 platforms
from Bungie, from the developers of Halo, like one of the the most widely regarded shooter on consoles ever made, and like critically and commercially, and well, maybe not commercially because of Call of Duty, but point taken. Like, these are the developers of Halo. This is a brand new shooter. It was built as an open world, massive experience, MMORPG / shooter, drop in, drop out, co-op, doing all these things you've never seen before. people were really, really, really excited, and I think that
It didn't quite hit that mark.
yeah, it was marketed as just a new type of game that you've never seen before, and people were really, really interested in it. And whether or not it hit the mark, like, I don't think you can replicate that expectation,
Yeah.
either from a marketing side or a design side.
Also, no competition at the time. There was like
True,
nothing
true.
else that was huge at that window.
yeah, like we people. I mean, to make a comparison, an analogy. A lot of people have been talking about whether or not Star Wars: The Force Awakens is going to break the world, like the international box office record for most gross.
Has it hit
movie.
China yet?
It hasn't hit China yet.
Yeah.
Still. The world record holder is Avatar, right?
Yeah.
I don't like, as cool as Star Wars is, and as much as I like it, and as much as a commercial success it is, I still don't think it's going to break the worldwide gross, because you know why? Avatar was marketed as a new way to see movies.
Yeah.
Right? People didn't think it was a movie. They thought it was going to be way more than that because of the 3D and because of all this crazy stuff. And there was marketing saying like James Cameron designed new cameras for, like built them from the ground up and all this stuff. And people like my mom, who are not interested in the movies, were like, "Hey, have you heard about this Avatar
This
calling
new
me on
camera
the phone?
thing?"
Yeah, like what is that, right?" I just don't think I don't think Star Wars can generate that sort of hype. Well, time will tell, because as you say, it's coming up on it and it hasn't hit China yet, so it may very well break it, but I don't think it will. And
It is a challenge.
similarly, I don't think that Destiny can replicate what the hype and the expectation now that there was for Destiny 1.
They had this perfect storm launching the first game, and I agree with you. And another thing to consider is that they might not launch on last gen hardware.
Oh, I certainly hope they don't. There'd be no reason to.
Yeah, we've all talked about how we hope they do not do that, and if they don't do that,
Yeah, I mean, what is that? 300? I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are.
let's
but
say
200 million consoles out
install
there that
base,
you're not
yeah.
hitting total
Yeah.
between PS3 and I don't know the exact sales figure, but
It's
isn't it
gonna
like
be-
85 or 80, 90 million per PS3 and Xbox 360 lifetime?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's a punch in the gut.
There is a sizable chunk of consoles out there that are PS3s and 360s that
And
if
they're
Destiny
just-
2 doesn't release on, you're just not getting those sales. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
definitely. All right.